I was born and raised in Shenzhen, that's in Guangdong province in China. And about when I was 14, I moved to Bay Area. And prior to that, like I said, tea has been a part of my life since I was a kid. My dad, our ancestors are from Fujian, and then they traveled to Indonesia, and then came back to China, and then my dad was born. And he grew up in Shantou, which is in Chaozhou area, where Gong Fu Tea is very much, like I said, everyday life activity. So I grew up watching him doing this, like using a gaiwan, using a teapot, stuffing as much tea leaf as you can in the vessel, which is very different, which I realize is very different from other tea drinking cultures. And after moving here, I sort of like realized how much I missed that aspect of Gong Fu Tea being a part of life. Every time I went home and I'm visiting my family, we're all drinking tea together. We're all appreciating just the moment without our phones, without TV, without any distraction. And I would say about 10 years ago is when I started to incorporate that into my life here. I wanted to just share with my friends here about what Gong Fu Cha is. And the more I got into it, the more I actually also explored tea shops in surrounding area. And I realized there are a lot of good Japanese teas, a lot of good Taiwanese teas, but not a lot of good Chinese oolong teas, which are sort of what I grew up with. So aside from drinking tea, I kind of started diving into how tea is processed. Chaozhou Gong Fu Tea is very generous, so a lot of this water just goes down the drain. So after we have been warming up the vessel, we will put in the tea. Depending on how big your vessel it is, we're doing about 5 to 8 grams to 100 milligrams. And you want to choose a vessel that is big enough. If you're doing big leaf teas, then it will kind of like put it in easier. If we're doing really small leaves, then this will also fit. But if this pot has a much smaller opening, then you'll crush the leaves. You don't want to do that. So usually, we rinse out these leaves, not because they're dirty, just because this way we can really smell the leaves better. So what you want to do is pour away from the tea leaves too. In Chinese, we say we don't want to puncture the cha dan, which is the gallbladder of tea. The reason why is because you don't want to release all the aroma and flavor all at once. It's a slow process, so you want to do that gradually. Gong Fu Tea is very much about the water to leaf ratio being very different. So you're doing a lot of leaves, but way less infusion time, so that with each infusion you're bringing out different flavors and you can appreciate it at different depths. I studied psychology. I used to study film and ended up doing psychology because it seemed like I could probably get more of a job. In film, I have been dabbling in film for a long time. But after I graduated, I was like, so I was mainly teaching Chinese. I was doing some film gigs. I was also working in a restaurant because I love food. If you can tell, food and tea, they're very much connected. And also in Chinese, we say 饮食, right? Like we're talking about like food and drink is together. So after that, just doing freelance, it got too difficult, essentially. And the law firm I used to work for got in at the right time, basically asking me like, what's going on? Like, do you want to like really do a 9 to 5 for a bit? Like, settle down, be more stable. And I was like, all right, let's do it. So then I ended up working in a law firm for a little bit too long, in my opinion. It provided a lot of security and stability, right? I don't have to worry about paycheck. And there's a very clear work and life sort of separation at the time. But I couldn't really see myself doing that for like, say 5 or 10 more years. And that's when I started really thinking about like, what is it that can combine all my passions. And starting my own business seemed like the sort of only way to go. So with my tea tastings, I kind of ask people to first smell the tea liquors, smell the leaves, and then also drink it in 3 sips, which is what we do in Gong Fu Cha. I really dabbled into it, not just dabbled, but like really dived into it around COVID. It was actually around March of that time, and I was gonna go back to visit the farm, which I always do every year when it's March. That's when COVID hit. So a lot of what I used to do, which is like doing in-person tea training and workshops and events and tea tasting, I had to kind of pause that and transition a lot of that to online. It's been a little bit of a struggle because a lot of tea and also just this type of experience is very in-person. Like it has to do with just sharing the energy and also just sharing the space with people. But it still has been a really rewarding experience, I would say. You know, with tea, it sort of encompass storytelling, history, food and beverage, and all of those things combined are something that I'm really passionate about. So that's why I started Teaphile about five years ago now. One of the challenges about having Teaphile is that I think there is a conception or misconception about Chinese products in America, that it is cheap or it is bad quality. Another reason why I started Teaphile too is that a lot of the farmers in Yunnan, in Chaozhou, and in Fujian who I work with, a lot of the younger kids don't really want to continue the trade, continue harvesting and also making tea because it's super labor intensive. And me doing this, helping them to realize not only are people in their surrounding villages are drinking teas, but also like people in America, people in UK, people in Europe are interested in tea. And not just tea bags, but good tea. I think it kind of helps them, gives them more meaning by continuing the trade as well. Yeah. So I mainly work with family farms, small family farms, and the reason why I do that is because first I can cultivate a relationship with them and also choose a type of tea or a type of roast based on that season. So sometimes with the customers I have here, which I also have a close relationship with, they might want, let's say, this Yashi they might want a dark roast of this, which is not common for a lot of the more commercial farms. But because they wanted that, I can experiment with the family farm and then figure out if this is something we can make. But in the beginning, it's pretty chaotic, right? I mean, I have this idea, this vision of bringing basically part of my childhood and presenting it to people here. And I would say majority of people here are consuming tea in a way where it's like more about the caffeine and just about the wellness. Like people just have a cup to go, that's sort of it. But when it comes to any sort of like tea ceremony or having it be a part of your life, part of your ritual every day, that's still sort of like untouched territory. So in the beginning, it's kind of figuring out how do I translate that through my products and then also bring that through tea tasting experiences to people so that people know that this is actually very approachable, right? A lot of times people are like, oh, Gong Fu Cha, Gong Fu Tea is like a ceremony. It's like there are a lot of tools. I don't know how to approach it, and am I supposed to be quiet? Are we supposed to sit still? But it's actually just part of life for people in Chaozhou. Like we grew up drinking tea between meals, after meals, and everyone's sitting together, and every time you go visit a friend, visit a relative, there's a Gong Fu tea set. So you're sharing space, sharing tea. It doesn't have to be very restrictive. It doesn't have to be quiet. It's just a part of everyday life. And that's something that I've been trying to get people to understand. So making tea and making food is about basically having an invitation for people to share a moment and share a story with you. And doesn't matter that gongfu cha is a very specific folk tradition from a very specific region in China. The fact that people are sharing this moment, I've heard folks recall memories that they had in Turkey, memories they had in Russia, memories they had, going to a dim sum place with their dad. Or, this tea smells like something that their grandma used to make, whether it's like an apple pie or something. All these things have been extremely meaningful to me, even if people don't buy tea sometimes. But to me, this is sort of the essence of Gong Fu Cha, right? It's about sharing a moment and sharing story and food together.